This is one of my favorite ways to make bread. There's a special texture and a depth of flavor that comes from baking it in a Dutch oven. The stability of the container and the hearty structure of the bread make me think about what's important. Individual relationships may come and go, but love itself stays the same. Life is full of change, but when we get in touch with something deep and unchanging, we find real happiness. I'm Jenny Randolph. Welcome to This Day. So let's jump right into making this garlic herb bread. Now we've already set our oven to 450 degrees. It's already preheated and ready to go. And if you watched the intro, you saw that we melted a half a stick of butter and we chopped up all of our herbs. Now today we're gonna be using rosemary and thyme and chives. So let's go ahead and add all of our herbs to that melted butter and give them a chance to marry. We want to also add 2 cloves of minced garlic and give that a bit of a stir. Oh, it smells good already. This bread is so tremendously fresh tasting. So you can use dried herbs in this, but I always prefer to use fresh. It just gives it that extra little bit of goodness. And most of these herbs came out of my garden. So now we're gonna set this butter mixture aside and we're gonna start on our yeast. As always, when we're making a yeast bread, we wanna prove our yeast. So that's what we're gonna do now. We have 1 cup of warm water, of lukewarm water. You wanna make sure that it's not too hot. And to that, we're going to add a teaspoon of sugar. And what the sugar does is it just gives the yeast some food so that it can foam up a lot faster. Now we're gonna add 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and that's the equivalent of 1 packet. Gonna give that a bit of a stir so that it starts to mingle and get all happy and foamy. Now we're gonna set this aside as well. Now we're gonna measure out our flour. You can do it the old-fashioned way and take a 1 cup measuring cup and just level it off, push it down. That's gonna be fine for this bread. I always tend to measure out my flour by the grams, so I weigh it, and that's gonna be 480 grams or 4 cups of flour. So let's do that now. And for this recipe, we can just add it right to our mixing bowl. We don't need to do anything extra or special. Also, this bread is really hearty, so we don't need to sift the flour. We don't need air in this bread. To our flour, we want to add 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 teaspoon of pepper. Just mix that up just a bit, just so it's all incorporated. To that mixture of flour and salt and pepper, we're gonna add our herb garlic butter. And now we have our yeast, and you can tell, I don't know if you can see it or not, but look at all the foam that has come up at the top. You can even see it through this glass container. That means that the yeast is good and we're ready to go. So we're gonna add the water and yeast and sugar to our flour mixture. Now that we have it all combined, as you can see, I have put the dough hook on my KitchenAid. And I'm gonna let the KitchenAid do most of the work today, most of the kneading, because this bread, again, it's a very dense bread, it's a very hearty bread, and I don't really have time this morning to sit here and knead for like 20 minutes. So I'm gonna let the machine do the work. We're gonna set this on a low speed for about 10 to 12 minutes until we really see that bread pulling away and we can really see the gluten in it stretching and combining. So while that was mixing and kneading, I've gone ahead and prepared a bowl and lined it with some vegetable shortening because we want our dough to be able to sit in here, but we don't want it to dry out and to crack. So let's go ahead and put it in there because it does have to take about an hour to rise. And you can see how dense the dough is and that our herbs are really nicely mixed, and we can see the pepper flakes in there and everything. So now we're going to just put him right down there. I always like to take the dough and spread it around the bowl so that the vegetable shortening gets coated on all sides. Again, we want everything really moist as it rises, because if it's dry when it's rising, the surface will crack a little bit. We don't want any hard pieces of dough. We want everything to be moist and ready to go when we put it in our Dutch oven. Now that he's all settled in the bowl and moist, we're gonna cover it with a little bit of plastic wrap. I'm gonna put this in a warm place for about an hour and let it double in size. So it's been about an hour and our dough has absolutely risen to double the size, and you can see how beautiful it is, and you can just smell the garlic and all of the fresh herbs, and it's really, really beautiful. So we do want to knead this just a little bit for the second time. So I'm gonna take some flour and just sprinkle a bit on here, not too much, because we don't want to put too much back into the dough, but we don't want it to stick to our surface. And I'm just gonna turn this dough out right onto a very lightly floured surface. Maybe just a little bit more flour just on the top, and we're just gonna knead it for just a couple of minutes. Not too much. You don't want to knead it for too long. We're just forming it back into the shape of a ball. And it's just the right consistency. It's very hearty and it's a very dense bread, and that's exactly what we're looking for. What I'm doing now is just pinching the bottom together and forming it into the shape that I want, and that's just a nice round ball. Because now is the part that makes this bread the best. And this is a Dutch oven, and you can get a Dutch oven for really cheap, and you can get a Dutch oven for really, really expensive. But you must use, this is cast iron. You have to use a really, really sturdy pot, because this pot with its lid is going in the oven. So Dutch ovens typically have the same lid that's made out of the same stuff, that doesn't have any plastic, that does not gonna have anything that's gonna melt in a really hot oven. Remember, we preheated our oven to 450 degrees. So don't use a regular pot in your oven, especially with the lid, because if your lid has any kind of plastic on it or anything, it's gonna melt. These are specifically designed to be versatile and to be able to go into an oven. So make sure you get one that can do that if you don't have one already, but look for a Dutch oven. This pot, I have had this particular pot for about 18, 19 years, and it is one that I use for soups and stews and bread. It's just so sturdy and reliable. And I realized that there are things in life that are just like that. Love is sturdy and reliable and unchanging. Beauty is sturdy and reliable and unchanging. And even though we have things in our lives that change, our families might change, our circumstances might change, our jobs may change, our financial situation may change, sometimes for the better, sometimes not, that there are things in life that are unchanging, and those are the things that you have to grab onto in the times of your life when maybe things feel chaotic or things feel changing. Right now in our family, we're experiencing some change because our oldest child is getting ready to move out for the very first time. And we're so excited and we're so happy and so proud, but that doesn't mean that things are not going to change. Now, some things are going to be different and change for the better, and some things can feel a little bit sad, and it's kind of a mixed blessing, you know. You want them to grow and you want to change and you want to have these new experiences, but that also means you have to leave the old ideas and the old stuff behind. But as a family, we're holding on to that unchanging love and that unchanging bond that we have. So distance and circumstance ultimately don't matter, because we have something sturdy. We have that tie that binds, and that's what we're all hanging on to. So if you have fluctuation in your life right now, or some big life event, or even a small life event that feels chaotic or feels like a mixed blessing, kind of bittersweet, hang on to the unchanging things in your life, because that is where true happiness lives, and that's what's going to get you through. But let's move on and finish out this amazing bread. So the first thing that we want to do is take some olive oil. We want to put about 2 tablespoons of olive oil in the bottom of our pan. And what this is going to do is it's going to give a really good crusty bottom to our bread. And remember, we shaped it and pinched the bottom of it so it's all ready to go. Just place it right in the middle. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to score the top of the loaf. And this is just to make it look pretty. We're going to give it an X. So I'm just going to cut right in there. Now we want to put another couple of tablespoons of olive oil right on the top. And again, this is going to give the crusty outside. To finish it off, we're going to put a sprinkling of salt on top and a little bit more pepper. Now we're going to put the cover on, and it's into the oven for half an hour with the cover on. After it's been in the oven for 30 minutes, you want to remove the top of the Dutch oven and reduce the heat to 400 degrees. And you'll want to bake it for another 15 minutes. I am so happy about the way that this turned out. It sounds beautiful. You can hear the crunch of it, and it looks beautiful. It's perfectly brown. And if you lift up the very bottom of it, you can see the crusty bottom that just turned out perfect. The olive oil really helped to cook it and make it really good on the bottom. And I'm just so happy. I can't wait to cut into this. So you can see it just turned out so lovely. It's really still quite warm. So you might want to wait a little bit longer than I did today, but I was so excited to show you. But it just turned out so perfectly. I'm so proud. This bread is perfect with any kind of soup or stew. I particularly enjoy it with our family's vegetable soup that I make. Let me know in the comments below if you want to have that recipe. I can show you guys what we do. It's really super simple and easy, just a basic soup, but it just really works with it. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, please hit that notification bell so that you get notified whenever I upload a new video. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.